Wednesday, January 18th, 2012 Board of Education meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please. All you.
Mrs. Capabianca. Here. Mr. Cavanero.
Here.
Mrs. Holman here. Mr. Kisco.
Here.
Mr. Marola. Mr. Nargi.
Here.
Mr. Oliver.
Present.
Mr. Rivero.
Here.
Mr. Tebow.
Here.
Mr. Traub.
Here.
Mrs. Batchelder. Here. Mrs. DeMonico.
Here.
Mr. Jocelyn.
Here.
Mrs. Crocco. Here. Mayor Bingham. And for the students, Matt Cavanero. Maggie Finn. Here. Christine Keelan.
All right. School and community session. The board invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or on other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make comments are requested to fill out the speaker sign-up sheet, including name, address, which must be stated at the beginning of your comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. Courtesy is expected in this limited public forum. The participating time will be limited to 3 minutes per person, 10 minutes overall, to guarantee an efficient operation of the entire meeting. Deb, is there anyone on that sheet? Is there someone?
Yes, there's one person.
Can I have that sheet, please? I did it myself. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Tanya Fitcher.
Pitcher.
Edit a letter. Welcome.
Thank you. Tanya Pitcher. I am a parent for our fourth school, and I know this evening you'll be talking about the governance councils. I sit on the governance council at fourth school, and I would like, at that time, if any questions that you may have about the governance council or comments, if you would feel free to open up the floor to myself. And I would be more than gracious to give you as much information that I have. Granted, we've only had 3 meetings since the start of the school year, but I would like to be able to give you my information and recommendations for maybe even seeing other schools in our district to have something as, hopefully, as wonderful as this should be.
Yeah, you are an expert.
I won't go that far.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, having no other names on the list, take a motion to approve the, well, we have to make a modification to the agenda. I'd like to get a motion to move the approval of the Local 1579 discussion and action items 1 and 2 until after the executive session. So moved by Daniel, second by David. All those in favor? Okay, moving forward with our amended agenda. Approval of the meeting minutes from the Board of Education meeting of December 14th, 2011. So moved. So moved by Mr. Cavanero, second by Mr. Thibault. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Information sharing session. Student representatives in school news. All right, who goes first? Ladies first, sorry.
Okay, we're going to start with the high school. Midterms start next Thursday, January 26th, and go until the 31st, which is also the last day of the marking period, and the end of the first semester. A week from tonight, on January 25th, the PTO is doing a fundraiser at Wendy's, which part of the proceeds go to THS. It's on the Torch website if you want more details. Project graduation raffle tickets are on sale until February 8th. Purchase a ticket from me, or you can see the website for phone numbers, to support a safe, drug, and alcohol-free graduation night, and a chance to win $500 gift cards and congrats, not iPads, but an iPad. The National Honor Society is hosting a pink out and basketball game in February, and the funds raised are going to help support breast cancer research. Stay tuned for the date. We're working on that right now. Tomorrow, all students will be involved in a facilitated discussion in our extended homeroom period, and it's going to be about bullying. There's a concert on Saturday night at 7 p.m. here by Tim Urban, an American Idol 2010 finalist, and it's going to benefit the class of 2014. Tickets are available at the door. And the Mayor's Committee on Youth has organized an underage drinking prevention program at THS. The date is the morning of February 7th, and a presenter from the Call Foundation is coming in to speak to all the grades.
From TMS, Jeff Yalden visited TMS on December 14th and spoke to students about respect for others, thinking before acting and living to be the best they can be. Students embraced the message and have been discussing it with teachers and peers. Sorry if I mispronounce this. Sima El Ayot in 8th grade won the 5th district competition for the Patriots Pen Essay and will be attending an awards dinner on January 22nd. The Susan B. Anthony Project educators are returning to TMS for a 3rd round of mini courses to support safe schools climate. This visit's topic is conflict resolution. To the elementary schools, I think we'll do next. Starting with Vogel Wetmore. The Torrington Fire Department visited kindergarten students. After arriving in one of their trucks, firemen discussed fire safety with students, and each student got to sit in the fire truck. 1st grade also had their annual visit to the Water Street Fire Station. Grade 2 visited the Torrington Historical Society, correlating this information with their social studies curriculum. The Sharon Audubon Society members presented a lesson on rocks and minerals to the 3rd grade classes. Talcott Mountain's Tom Noonan is presenting a science lesson on states of matter to the 3rd grade next week. Ms. Ahern and Ms. Melradno's classes are continuing their studies at the Flanders Science Center. 5th grade teachers from Torrington and Litchfield received training on Student Diversity Games on February 17th. Their students will experience the Diversity Games on February 23rd and 24th at the Warner Theater. Training classes are the result of a grant obtained by Cheryl Colacro and will be presented by teachers from the Discovery Center. Parents, staff, and students enjoyed an exceptional student performance at the annual winter concert this past week, as presented by Mr. Brandt and Mr. Valerio's band, chorus, and orchestra. The selected pieces were challenging, a little edgy, and very well received. Coming up is Baby Birthday on Saturday, January 21st, as part of the Birth to Graduation Initiative, from 9:30 to 11:30. Okay.
I am Torringford, and the Torringford School is getting ready for Valentine's Day by supporting the troops. Operation Torringford Cares is being coordinated by 2 Torringford teachers and a parent volunteer, and it will run until January 30th. Because some students have parents who are serving in the military overseas, they decided it would be a great idea for the school community. Each grade level is bringing in certain items, and students are writing notes, and they will be packed and shipped to the servicemen so they arrive by Valentine's Day. We are also continuing the tradition of making Valentines for senior citizens in Torrington, and they're going to be delivered to those who participate in the Meals on Wheels program.
And next we have Southwest School. Last week, 4 student council members and 2 5th grade representatives, along with the student council advisors, Matt Bell and Sarah Hollenbeck, attended the Connecticut Association of Schools Leadership Conference. The thank you notes sent to me from these 6 5th graders spoke of their gratitude for the various thinking and leadership activities they experienced at the conference. They made new friends and returned to Southwest School ready to embark on new student council initiatives that will benefit our school community.
At East School, the 3rd graders were treated to a visit last week from the folks at Talcott Mountain Science Academy, and the topic was dry ice, and the students found it fascinating. Again, this year, they're working in partnership with Susan B. Anthony to engage the students in meaningful conversations and activities centered around anti-bullying strategies. Finally, last week, Detective Rich Dowd from the Torrington Police Department spoke to the 5th graders about internet safety. On February 22nd at 6:30, he'll return to East School to offer a similar program to parents. And this is open to all parents of elementary school students district-wide.
And that's all.
That's all. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do recognition of THS fall athletes.
That's just, what's that?
Yeah. We don't have the certificates with us tonight, so it's just going to be a cordial handshake with Mr.
What else could you ask for?
right? A handshake. It's better than a hug.
Okay, for THS football, all NDL league, we had Brendan Lighton. We had Zach McNutt and Jeff Holder.
No, I'm not getting tackled.
I think they're all on another team, that's why they're not here tonight.
All right, we also have the Ames Lee Outstanding Senior Award went to Brendan Lighton of our football team. Girls soccer, we have Allie Otis. We have the swim team. You can see that.
You saved the best for last.
Boys soccer, Eric Rinaldi. And we'll move into the girls swimming and diving team. Raquel Finio,
She's at practice.
she's at practice.
Good, so you guys are skipping.
Caitlin McCarthy.
There you go.
Karina Nickerson. Krista Traub.
She's at practice.
And Mackenzie Welch.
Congratulations. One more. Joanne, as a player to be named later.
Oh. And then the optional draft, Joanne?
These are the,
Oh. Okay, that's it for you, David.
thank you. Thank you. John, congrats.
Okay. We also had for football, the ESPN High School Player of the Week, New Haven Register All-State, Walter Camp All-State was Brendan Lighton. Did they come in first, or?
This is how I got it.
Okay. We're recognizing Krista Traub for the 200 IM and Karina Nickerson for the 100 breaststroke.
That was for all state.
All state? Okay. Well, that was the information we didn't have. Thank you. Wow. Then we had team records broken for the girls swim team. We had the 200 medley relay, Mackenzie Walsh, Karina Nickerson, Krista Traub, and Caitlin McCarthy at 152.68. We had the 200 individual medley by Krista Traub at 212.60. We had the 100-yard butterfly by Krista Traub at 59.91. Glad I'm not still swimming here. The 100-yard backstroke, Caitlin McCarthy at 101.05. The 100 breaststroke, Karina Nickerson at 108.02. And the 400 free relay, Caitlin McCarthy, Mackenzie Walsh, Karina Nickerson, and Krista Traub at 346.74. I know they just sound like numbers, but I couldn't walk in a day. So I couldn't swim at all. Okay, fall 2011, all copper cross country is Erin Peretti. Okay, we'll go through the list. Football. Joanne Toribio. Okay. Brad Brown, Phil Bresson, and Demetrius Daly. For boys soccer, we have Jaro Borgia. We have, girls soccer, Mariah Cerudo, Sarah Parada, Taylor Pestrito, and Tony Wilson. And for girls volleyball, we have Stephanie Sinat and Kylie Rosengrad. Joanne, did you want to add someone, or?
No, I think we could recognize the coaches who helped all those folks do that.
All right, moving on to the superintendent's report, December enrollment.
That was in your packet. Thank you very much for coming and for making Torrington High School very proud.
there any questions regarding enrollment, referrals? The question came up, do you want to continue receiving this in your packet every month? That was a question, because it's on our website.
Seems like it's more quarterly or 14.
Okay.
Right.
We can do that.
This information can be updated monthly on our data dashboard, which was left under construction, but we could post it there. It's a public
Right.
document.
Yeah. Report to the board every month.
Okay.
I'd like to see it stay monthly because, for example, in the month of December here, you look at unique referrals for December at the high school, you have a really huge number at 335. I mean, what's going on? Torrington High School, December, unique referrals. If you look at the past 4 years, obviously that's what we have here. 335 is just not even, something's going on.
Was that
Yeah,
for
if
December
you
through?
look at the numbers, when it starts out in ninth grade, it seems to have posted the biggest jump in it and whatnot. So I think that would be more where you
I mean,
start
even-
to look for the information.
Even in the 12th grade, say from 08, you had 30, you doubled that up. That's one issue there. But then when you look at, and I'm glad that it's being
I think
written up.
it's more it's being addressed,
And that so that's something that's positive,
because
that
when you
we're
look at
addressing this issue.
how many actually become in school or out of school suspensions, it's, much lower.
But that's the other issue, which is why you see the referrals, but then you see the in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. The out-of-school suspension has stayed consistent, but the in-school suspension has gone in 4 years from 60 to 21. So are we understanding that there are problems, kids are getting into trouble, yet the types of punishment that we're now implementing has diminished? We're not treating them with the same severity. Obviously, the in-school suspension diminishing by 60%. Question, what are we doing? I mean, do teachers, do students think that, yeah, well, we don't care if we get written up, what's the consequences of this poor behavior? And clearly, in-school suspension has diminished over there. I don't know these answers, I
can just comment on the 2008. The 2008, there was an issue where the students were getting tardies when they weren't getting the doors down there, and they were getting school suspension. It was a big issue in 2008. So I don't think, I would believe that the majority of that 60 were kids that were here, but not physically in the building because of the new process of how they got into the school.
I guess
Well, the other question, Andrew, if you look at it, the Lanyards came in halfway through 2010. So I would assume, Cheryl, Joanne, how many would you consider that 335 number? Would a portion of those or Lanyards?
I don't think I have that number right here. I'm not sure if it's in this packet, but yes, a lot of that is not having ID.
ID and Lanyards. That was something that was not even part of the process before.
And that is, I think, the danger of comparing one year to another to another to another when we have not had consistent rules and regulations for all those 4 years. And then to try to compare referrals based on differing rules and regulations can be confusing. Or misleading, I think is the word.
And then to go to more detailed analysis, you have clearly the most common referral at the high school was displays of affection. don't know what that really tells you about the student body, their after to see each other.
It's a safe and welcoming environment.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to say, I think that must be an error because I just can't imagine that that's really the case. I will check into that particular piece of information.
When I see a number like that, when I see a number like that, it's probably not the most egregious thing that kids may be doing or may be, but it's just kind of a culture of why the students feel that it's proper conduct in the halls and in the building to display their affection towards each other.
I would like to have that data looked at again for the next board meeting because I'm really questioning that as being someone who's in the hall and in the cap. I kind of find that hard to believe.
I mean, that's the big number that really pushed
I
these
see that.
numbers up.
It could have been the same.
I see
And then just go to the middle school. Most common referral in December was insubordination, insubordinate behavior. Again, those are types of things that I think are cultural in the school, where kids are just have a feeling that there is no authority that they're subjected to. And yeah, it's, and what can we do as a district? What can we do as administration?
Isn't another way to look at that they're enforcing it?
Yeah, and that's the good part, that they're enforcing it.
And I can
Then
tell
the
you-
next question is, once you know they're enforcing it, why do kids persistently feel that, how do you communicate to them that this isn't good behavior for themselves, for the building?
One of the things from sitting on a number of, unfortunately, a growing number of expulsion hearings, this might be the only structured environment where these kids are actually dealing with someone with some sort of authority. I can tell you that the expulsion hearings are on the rise. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be completely honest with you, but I would think that from my standpoint in being on these expulsion hearings, that the administration is doing a decent job at identifying what is an egregious act and bringing it to the level of recommending expulsions. I think we've said 10 in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
And there's 2 more on Friday. And then there's 2 more after that. So I think that
It's definitely coming.
it's coming down, but it's sort of, you're going to see expulsions ramp up. And
Right.
once that message is in the schools, there may be a trickle-down effect that they are enforcing the rules, that the board is serious about having them taken to the letter of the law.
And my only, and that's great that we're being
Just a
more
perspective.
reactive than we probably have been in the last several years. And again, once you realize that you do have a problem, then the next thing is to try and become proactive. Once you detected that you do have these types of cultural problems in your district, and become more proactive. It's always that give and take. So that's what concerns me.
Yeah, all I want to say, pretty much dovetailing exactly what Andrew's saying right now is, my sense is the administration is doing exactly what the Board of Education is asking them to do. They're correctly enforcing and, properly enforcing our code of conduct, and these are the results. And I think we all pretty much are in agreement as to why we're getting, these kinds of increasing discipline problems. And hopefully, as we move forward, this budget cycle going forward, I think the proper focus of the Board of Education and our role in all of this is to step up to the plate and say, how do we, we're addressing the issues now of older students and the dice cast, to a very large extent, the dice cast of what you can and can't do in terms of changing their behavior. But we have to admit, we have to address the fact that teachers are not parents. We don't hire them to be parents. We don't expect them. We don't pay them to be parents. They enforce the rules, but they are not parents. And respect for authority, respect for the educational process, respect for their fellow students, all that comes from another area. And we recognize that there are these lapses, huge swath of our population, where there's these lapses of that kind of parenting. So then the critical issue is how much time and energy, resources, and how much guts does this Board of Education have to commit resources, i.e. dollars, into coming up with some practical, targeted, surgical approaches to filling in those blanks in these young kids' lives. I've been doing it, other people, board members have been doing it in a piecemeal way for the last several years, trying to get initiatives rolling. As a board, we need to step up to the plate and have an overall, district-wide approach to this. And that's going to take money, it's going to take research, it's going to hire professionals who specifically at early ages are addressing both dealing with the parents and dealing with the young kids, dealing with the parents, helping parents become better parents so that kids can become better students. That's our goal. And it's not going to be solved tonight, it's not going to be solved with this, but that's all I want to say. Is I think that all of your concerns, Andrew, I think they're being addressed. I think they're being addressed properly by our administrators right now. Our bigger task as a board, our responsibility now is to say, what can we do to affect it? And that all begins early on.
In following David's thought, as with Paul on the school improvement for the last 2 years, and when I was doing policy for the last 2 years, the push for us has been the code of conduct, some type of stricter handbook policy and discipline policies. So if these numbers weren't going up, I think the administration would be directly going against what we've been asking. I mean, it's hard to compare to something 2 years ago when we had a lot of the policies that we did just review in the last year hadn't been reviewed in 14 to 16 years. So they were out of tune with what was needed. So with what we've done now, I mean, we can kind of look at these numbers, which I think quarterly right now, because you really can't compare it back to 08 because, the policies in the school improvement committee and the handbooks really weren't solid then. So you got to look at where we are now and hope that our numbers decline, that we've set the bar like you want. We've set the message that, we mean business, this is what we want, this is the way we expect, and that from what's happening with the increase in expulsion hearings is that this will go down because the students are going to see that we're enforcing this, you're going to be out, and hopefully it goes forward. So I mean, I don't know, I would ask for you to think about, I mean, if we get it monthly, I think it would be a better quarterly report for us to track it and make a trend out of it.
Correct.
We can get it monthly, but let's just take it as a review or as receive it, but then monthly we can review it as a quarterly, we're tracking it forward, how's it going? I mean, would you agree with that, Andrew? It's just we have the same questions every month because it's, we're comparing new data to data that, obviously we all know is skewed.
If I could just say, just as a quick solution so we can get past this agenda item. If we did it as a quarterly, Andrew, look at, the information is online, right? The monthly information is online. We have an information sharing from the superintendent every single meeting. If there's something that stands out to you that you want asked, any board member can then ask the superintendent, I'm looking at this, and just ask the administration to come and prepared to answer, knowing that any given meeting they may be asked questions about this report.
Right, but I would say do a quarterly review of it.
Yes.
And then, monthly, just have the materials in there monthly, but we'll focus on it. It can become a discussion item instead of just an informational.
Yeah, I mean, if any board member wants to see something that stands out, they ask me at the meeting, but as a board, we just look at it every quarter, which makes more sense.
Yes, or no?
Okay. The other piece that I would look at, when you take a look at what the most common referral listed by years were, it says 20, but it could have been 2 students chalking up those 20, or it could be 20 students, being caught, so, for whatever. So that's another piece but the way we get the data, we can't say, how many students it actually involved. We just know that there were 20
We could get that data,
referrals.
right? I mean, clearly.
We do know that in the middle school and in the high school, we do know that some of those numbers are very current repeat offenders that we just reviewed in expulsion hearings. That it wasn't a single offense that got them. it was multiple in a row that led up to that.
12, 15.
Yeah,
But if we're gonna take
30.
this serious as a trending, analysis, we do need that number.
absolutely, yeah, it makes a big
So,
difference. As Cheryl's saying, it makes a huge difference, because I know that some of the ones we've had have been, literally a dozen times since the beginning of the year.
And the importance of also getting the data be relevant to the board is ultimately, like Paul said, as we approach budget time, that would be sometime in January, February, before we start really doing our budget. The board should get good numbers, good trends, and then talk to the administration and say, yeah, we're really going in a good path. We don't really have much problems here. But if we see the data showing that there are some glaring problems, then we can discuss what we would do financially at budget time to put the resources in to alleviate and be proactive with these issues. That would be something that I think.
Well, I think that's definitely where it's headed, but in this budget cycle right now, I don't think we have anything that we can trend off of, because we really just, the numbers have just started to clear up over the past 6 months. It's hard to trend backwards. I would say going forward, that's definitely. Governance Council. Go ahead.
One thing, okay, mine one, okay. We did receive, we just found out this week, we did receive $30,000 from, it's a collaborative effort between Tech and the Torrington Public Schools. We wrote a grant for $30,000 for CBS to work with the Birth to Graduation program and actually having parent educators trained and providing a couple of buildings in the town to see what this prototype, what this model of how it would work and how it would impact parents and working with their children. And we're also working with Even Start participants. And so, again, we'll be able to see how it would work.
How is that supposed to work? To try and,
It's,
what's the goal? What's
the goal is to make parents better parents.
Right, I understand. What's the mechanism for doing that grant?
It's part of our Birth to Graduation initiative that was begun last year with the hospital and, a real huge collaborative in town. And what we're trying to do, it's the birthday party this Saturday, again, to get, when a child is born, they're given this packet, little bag and little trinkets and things in it, but it's also information on the development of their child during that first year. And also resources available to them if they're concerned that the child, isn't growing and developing milestones as they should. And then the other piece is that we can meet monthly in small groups where we're training people to be parent educators so that they will come together with groups of young parents or any parents, first time.
That's the part that interests me. Who's doing that now?
It's part of the Birth to Graduation. People and Tech.
Who?
Parent volunteers, teachers. We're trying to pair up an early childhood educator with a couple of parent volunteers.
Yeah.
The teachers are already trained in the Parents as Teachers model about
Right.
parent education. What we're doing is we're bringing the parent volunteers along to be at these play groups with the parents, and at each play group we will tackle one piece about child growth and development and what they can do to nurture it, how they can engage their child.
No, this is great.
We're
Is there
starting
not
though-
reach the social clubs in Torrington? I mean, we've got all these, there is.
We-
Are they aware of this, that we're looking for volunteers, parents who want to, retirees?
Right now we
people
have,
who want to do
right now
this?
we have about 20 people who
Who
are
want to
gonna
do
be-
this?
Yes.
All right, terrific.
Julie Fabiashi has been like and working with Donna Levy, okay? So now we have 30,000 that we can train, and once we train, then we already have places in our schools where the parent
Are we
groups
getting
can come.
Spanish language parents?
Yes, we are.
Terrific, terrific.
And in fact, one of the translators that we use with our ESL program is going to be trained as a parent educator.
This stuff will have results. This kind of stuff will have results.
At little steps, because if we get this right, then there's opportunity to write more grants and get more programs.
Well, if we can expand it, I mean, this is what we can do.
So we're
a lot ways
kind
to
of,
go.
it's not a, I don't want to call it a pilot. I'm gonna call it an extension of what we've been doing, but really developing it more into how it will be. But I will bring that to the board, all written up.
School governance councils.
I didn't request for a projector, and so my fault. But anyways, in your packet, you do have information on school governance. And I would just like to share with you how I was going to approach it with you this evening. So just give me a minute. So the School Governance Council is really a collaborative effort among the school, the family, and the community. Our greatest resource in any community is our children. And when we can join forces among the family and the schools and the community to really develop an environment where all children can succeed, that's probably the most critical thing any school, any family, or any community can do. So if I was to ask you, the purpose of the School Governance Council really is to provide for all stakeholders in towns and cities to craft a collaboration, a real effort that will lead to student success. It allows parents, school staff, students, where appropriate, especially at the high school level, and community leaders to work together to improve student achievement. And that's what it really, truly is all about, student achievement. It provides a vehicle for representatives of all the constituents of a school and its greater community to speak in a common voice to the needs in order to improve student both academic success and personal success. So what I'd like to ask you right now is, can any of you provide me with a synonym for collaboration? How would you define collaboration? No, I like to engage my students when I'm teaching.
Fiona came.
Fiona. Oh, wait, you're cheating. You've already got.
We didn't talk about it. No, I mean, I feel strongly that we won't be successful until parents, teachers, community members, principals all work together. And I think this is the start to having that open communication.
It also allows for everyone to speak using the same vocabulary, demonstrating the same understanding of what is expected in student learning, what's the work of the schools, to make getting an education significant and very important to the families, and they know exactly what is expected of their child in the classroom every year, every step of the way, but also how the school and the family can partner to achieve this child's success, and also what the community can do. But it's educating everybody involved. It's the faculty and staff of a school coming to understand the different cultures in our school, the different needs and strategy, the needs of our community right now. So anyway, anybody else want to give me a synonym for collaboration?
You're part of the group because you're the expert.
That's fine.
You get to chime in.
I personally see,
Guilty. My battery just died, I'm sorry.
as a parent and as a daughter to a single mom, she always used to tell me it took a village. And here's our village. We're a very large village. You know, we have a lot of teachers in our district. We have a lot of parents. And unfortunately, they don't come together. There's very little communication that I can see. As a very strong advocate for my child, I've been, I feel like I'm that one person in that village that has the biggest mouth. And now it's going to be 7 parents at Forbes School that's going to have the biggest mouth. But we also have those teachers that are going to be able to hear what we say, and we can hear what they say finally. Because I didn't know half of the things that go on in that school. And I'm getting to learn that now. So I would say village.
It's really, like as I said, it's an education opportunity to understand what goes into the organization, management, instructional, educational leadership, the cost, the resources available into operating and running a school. And so that everybody understands what it does and everybody becomes an advocate for it. When you look on a school governance membership, it has representation of all constituents of a school, the family, the faculty and staff, and members of the community, parents or guardians whose children are attending the school, 7. Teachers from representing the school, there are 5. Community leaders within the district, 2. And then the school principal or his or her designee. The selection process for the school governance is that the parents are elected by the parents. The faculty representation is elected by the faculty and their colleagues. And community representation is elected by the council members, by people who are nominated by the principal. Generally, the members of the school governance will be from 2 to 3 years, because this is the first year at Forbes. They're going to have to, some will serve 2-year commitments, some will serve 3, so that not in 2 years it'll be a brand new council, because you want continuity. Initiatives that will be begun by the council will take 1, 2, 3 years, and because what you'll do is something will be brought up, it will be recognized as a strategy, it will be implemented, data will be gathered to see, is it working, isn't it working, how can it be tweaked. So it takes a good 3 years to take initiative into practice. The responsibilities, and it's the council works in an advisory capacity. It's there to assist the principal in the following ways: to analyze school achievement data and school needs as they relate to a school improvement plan. And the school improvement plan is generally designed by members of the faculty. To review the fiscal objectives of the school's draft budget and advise the principal before it's submitted to the superintendent. And this has been practiced now for 3 years in the district, that a principal will meet with parents and family members, to review the budget, and, if they have any input and questions about it before it comes down to the central office. But now with this year, they'll actually go through it with the governance council, and then there'll still be an opportunity for all parents to come in and take a look.
We're also inviting Captain Peterson. That's the high school group.
The other piece for us is the members of the governance council participate on interview committees for new hires for the school, and they report back to the superintendent or to the human resource director in regards to recommendations from people that they've interviewed. So they're giving input as to who will be hired and work at the school. And again, as I said, it assists the principal in making program and operational changes to improve schools' achievement. And that really is the biggest piece. And the members serve in an advisory capacity and assist the principal. Because if you had to look at it as the principal is the chief executive officer of the school, and the principal develops the school improvement plan, and then the school governance council provides support for the principal, and gives feedback prior to many things going public, general public. Now, other responsibilities is members of the governance council can develop and approve a written school parent involvement policy. You know, how do we want to engage parents? What are we going to do? What are we going to plan for the year to encourage parents to become more active participants in their child's education? How are we going to reach out? This is probably the holy grail, Bible, whatever, of school, family, and community partnerships. It was purchased for every principal this year. So just to give them some idea of where to begin and how to begin. The other piece is to develop and approve a school compact for family, students, and school personnel that really outlines what the school's goal is. We talk about, as educators and their evaluation plan, we have to set SMART goals. Well, principals have to set SMART goals for their school. And what's the academic focus, and what strategies are going to be developed to reach this academic focus. Review the school improvement plan and advise the principal before it's submitted to the superintendent. Conduct, and report the results of an annual survey among all constituents related to the school climate and conditions, and provide advice to the principal on other major policy matters affecting the school. What the School Governance Council does not do, it does not manage the school, it does not supervise the staff, it does not enter into contracts or purchase agreements, it cannot discuss individual issues between teachers and students and or parents, it cannot determine student eligibility for school admission, it cannot determine class allocations or student assignments, and it cannot become involved in discipline issues, student or personnel. That's all dealing, much of this is dealing with confidential information, so the School Governance Council cannot be part of it. There is excellent training available for schools that would like to develop school governance councils, and it's from CERC and CT PERC. And they will come out and actually, begin schools and give an idea of once a council's in place and how they can go about focusing on how they're going to engage parents and what their priorities are and how to really read the data to determine what the focus of their work should be. And there are key ways, 7 keys to successful school, family, and community partnerships. It's through parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home. And you can see my last page. And, okay, thank you. And decision-making and collaborating with the community. So when you look, the major purpose of School Governance Council is really to create a collaboration in which the members work together for the betterment of student achievement, and which in the end develops a better community overall. That's it in brief. We do have a summary.
Can you point information? Which schools now, the state mandates this, right? This is
For
not
the
Board of
first
Education.
time around, yes, they identified schools that had to be in operation over a year ago, and then schools that had to come on board this fall. Forbes School was one of the schools in the second tier that had to come on this fall.
What other schools joined in?
Yeah.
Just Forbes right now? Just Forbes has this.
And we're still trying to figure out why, but that's okay.
Okay, well, does the board have the authority to institute this at other schools as discretion or no?
It's a volunteer for anybody else who would like to do it. And so Joanne volunteered. And it would be difficult to implement across the board in a district at one time.
Yeah.
But there are elements from it that can be done. Like Trinity Public Schools already has a parent-student contract, and Mrs. Monaco has been working she began her work last year with all principals and how those could look different. Last year, the district did initiate a survey of all parents for, you know, school climate, culture, and, okay? So some things have been put in place. So we'll, you know, take it as a couple schools at a time.
Yeah, I have other questions, but other people want to talk. The one thing I want to get to before this conversation is over, because when I first started out in this work, before I was on the Board of Education, Southwest School, they started something called site councils, which are very much the same idea, okay? And one of the things that we ran up against immediately was defining boundaries between what was the site council, what was the PTO, and what was the realm of the Board of Education. And those are real critical boundaries. And we better get a handle on that fast, or we're going to be spinning our wheels just talking about boundaries for the next 3 years.
Yes, Fiona?
One, I think if you follow this model, it's very clear what the boundaries are. And the state has done all the legwork for us. It's very clear what you can and can't do. The meetings are very well organized because the people that are running the meetings are trained. I mean, I think this is highly beneficial to us as a Board of Education, because if we, you know, parents and faculty, for the most part, don't communicate because we're from two different ones. They assume we understand what they're talking about, we assume they understand our needs, and the reality is they don't. We had at Forbes, the people that are on that council are very highly involved parents. And when we sat down for our first one-on-one with the teachers and in our group settings, we were thousands of miles apart from what we thought. So I think if we start getting people actually talking about what the real issues are and working on solutions, literacy is an issue for a multitude of reasons. So our group is focusing on literacy. We're looking at community resources that can assist us in literacy. You have people that have time to go out and look and assist the school in finding these resources. I would like to strongly recommend that we implement this at the high school with their willingness, because we're looking at changing modeling. There's a lot of changes going on at the high school, and the high school has had a lot of changes. And to get back around this, we need to make sure everyone's on the same page. So I hope you guys will support putting this in at the school.
I think it sounds like a very positive solution, a way to look at something with a different set of eyes. And a different set of eyes never hurts. My only question is, you did mention the training. How much is that going to cost? And is there any ability to get any grant money for that?
We have $2,000 for this year to do the high school, and that brings resources in a lot. So, you know, even if we did $2,000 or $4,000 over the next, you know, 3 years to bring in the rest of the schools. And we could always see if there's other grant money out there.
Does this governance, will it have like a liaison, someone who would, I don't know how it actually is, but my concept is, will it have some type of liaison of this group, say, obviously of one who would come before, say, school improvement on a regular basis and express their concerns of what they're seeing in the building on a monthly, quarterly basis.
I mean, as representative.
Yeah, so
of
as
the
to
school.
keep the school improvement, so that school improvement can bang around some of the issues they're seeing, and then school improvement could then bang the
Ask
issue.
the principal.
There's a chair that's elected, the principal is actually not the chair.
I wouldn't want a paid employee of the district.
The chair at Forbes is not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, whoever that group would, but I would like to know that as they discuss their issues, they would then send a layperson to, if school improvement would be the appropriate place to go, and give the board a non-professional opinion of what they see as priorities, things that could be of improvement in their building. Wherever you open up the dialogue with the board, have some direct contact with an organization such as this, where they feel comfortable talking to the board and believe that the board is open-minded to what they're saying.
I think that's a good direct connection from the school governance committee, you know, the chair of the school governance committee to come to the school improvement committee.
what, along those lines, gets to my initial question too, along those lines, what does the state, is there a state recommended, is there an escalation? If there's disagreement, within that governance committee between the teachers or the the administration
bring
of the
in
school.
someone from the
and
state to-
Who presents, and how does that get resolved?
There's people that we could bring in to.
Does the state have,
resolve.
does the state say, is there?
Yeah, well, your lowest performing districts, your urban environments, they actually have somebody who goes out on a regular basis. For us, it's, yes. When
But
we
the
need
state
it, we
literally,
can call.
if it gets down to a really specific thing at Forbes School, where there's a difference between the governance council and the administration, is that correct? Am I saying this correct? Are they different entities at this point?
Yeah, because the principal's a non-voting member.
Right.
So your board
Right,
of
so the
governance
principals
council.
say, no, this is not gonna work, I don't wanna do this, blah, 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 blah. The governance council saying, the government, what do we call this?
Governance.
Yes,
Governance
governance
is saying, we should do this, this, this. Who resolves that?
Does that come to us? Does that go to grievance? Does that go to?
If you refer to the sheet that's in the packet under council responsibilities, it says school governance council serve in an advisory capacity and shall assist the school administration. I think this still preserves the right of the principal to make decisions for the school. However, they advise and assist, and so their input is valuable and is solicited and should have a bearing on the final decision.
I think Paul's question is if the governance council is in a 180-degree position from where the principal is on a topic, how does that conflict get resolved?
It's on the state website. For us, I mean, there's hundreds of pages of all the ins and outs and all the situations. So I think if you clearly follow this model, they've covered pretty much every scenario that could possibly happen. But you would need to model what they're requiring.
Well, I think we lose this Board of Education right from the get-go, from the start, that we do this escalation piece ourselves, and say, well, no, you're gonna first go to the superintendent or the assistant, blah, 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 then you go to a subcommittee, or then you go to the, and we boom, spell it out.
Well, this is just an informational piece for us tonight. This is just an informational piece for us to digest tonight, and then before they brought it back.
But I think that's something we should iron out. The Board of Education should dictate what that process of.
If we're setting up non-mandated board of governances, we should know how they're going to run.
Correct, and how they're going to resolve conflicts.
And the other piece too is that the focus is student academic achievement. And if students, if the building as a whole, or students, are moving forward, that's the whole purpose, is to improve student academic achievement. That would be the one big thing that, would, I'm trying to think how I want to say this, that's the end goal. So if it comes down to the governance council saying, not agreeing in how it's going to happen, student academic achievement does rest on the shoulders of the superintendent, but of the principal.
Okay, and I'm totally fine with that.
I think in Paul's, to end this conversation, along this conversation, it's sometimes adults act like children. So we don't have some type of, without looking through the website, we would have to look through the website and see
I mean, I can find
how, just see how conflict resolution is. But our two experts would like to chime in.
I can tell you that I've been doing a lot of research because we are going to have many opinions, and we're not always going to, there's going to be things that the principal is just not going to like to hear, I'm sure, because we all do. We're very different people, and we come from many different walks of life. So I've been sitting down for the last couple days. Luckily enough, I work third shifts, so I sometimes need some extra reading in the morning so I can go to sleep. And I've been all through.
We'll send you a board package.
Sounds great. Hey, I usually don't get to bed until after 4, so extra reading would be wonderful. I have been, though, on the state site, Department of Education, and have looked at Act 10-111. I've also been on a few different websites. I believe it's Connecticut Parent Power. They have wonderful, packets. They have wonderful slideshows that goes through every step of, every aspect of this. And I'll be more than happy to write all those down so that you guys have that information. To really understand it, you really do need to take a little bit of time and just kind of really dive into it. It's a lot of information. I think in the long run, though, this is really going to bring our community together. Right now, it's very separate entities, and it's not going to work that way. We're seeing a breakdown in our education system. It's sad, but very true. And it's not just happening here in Connecticut. Our children are not strong in literacy. And I know for a fact that, as Fiona was mentioning, two of the biggest things that I see and that we are going to be looking at as goals for the next, hopefully, year or two will be engaging our families in literacy K through 5. And if we can make an improvement in that, that will then extend to the middle school. That will then extend to the high school. And it will strengthen. It can't fail if we come together on one page eventually. As a high school, I know Kathy's here to brush on that, but as somebody in the elementary level, I would love to see this in the high school, so when my son gets to that level and when my twins, when they're in school, can actually have the benefit of what this council could bring to our school. Hopefully sooner than later.
No, I get that. My personal perspective is I do understand that, and like I said, from my work on the site council. But again, I sit here on the Board of Education, and I am one for believing that an organization runs best when you have very tight lines of control. And my concern, and going forward, I want to be very upfront about it, is that the Board of Education hires a superintendent, then through other officers hire staff, we hire principals. These are professional educators. The problems with public education, can't be, the problems with public education are many and varied and very, very complex and have a long, long back history, long back history. And as an organized, as this executive council for public education in Torrington, our concern has got to be that we don't undermine the authority of those that we have given the authority to run our schools. And as long as, from my perspective, as long as that's clearly understood, then this will be positive. And I know there can be positive, but we cannot have too many chefs in the kitchen. And ultimately, there has got to be clearly accountable lines, clearly defined lines of accountability. And from it runs through the Board of Education, that person sitting right there, ultimately through the principals, and that is going to be, for me, I can't speak for other board members, but that's my perspective, is that is who ultimately runs the school and makes the final decisions.
If you look at the law, though, it's very clear, it's very cut and dry.
Right, and I think there will be no problem as long as everybody on the company, particularly, and that's all, that's easy to say right now, but as soon as you come to loggerheads over an issue, as long as everybody remembers that, we will not have problems, and that gets forgotten.
We get it.
Let's give Kathy her.
I'm thrilled that the board is even looking at this because I brought it up at a Board of Ed meeting a couple of months ago during community service to look at this. So I'm like thrilled that you're doing this, that you're even considering it. Even though the high school was not mandated to do this, we still would follow the same guidelines for the state. So again, it is just a council. We have, they have no authority. But the way I look at it, with all the changes that everyone's thinking about doing to the high school, I was at a meeting last week where they said, or 2 weeks ago, they have to bring the teachers on board to make all these changes to the high school.
No, you said you gotta bring the families on board
But,
too.
right, and that's what I said at that meeting, the families have to get on board with this. When you get to the high school, you have such a huge disconnect. There is, and I can speak, I have 3 kids, 1 graduated, I have 2 more here, totally different levels. I hear totally different stories about what goes on at the high school. It is, the way I look at it, with all the changes that are going to take place in the next couple of years, it is a way for everybody to know what's going on. The teachers elect the teachers, the parents elect the parents. They don't get selected by certain people, so it would be a diverse, I hope, group of people that would come forward. I think that this can only be the best thing for the high school, because right now, you know, and Joanne is awesome, but right now it is just, there's been so many, I can't even think of the word to describe what's gone on here in the last 3 years, but there's just been so much lost in the school that you need to bring the people together to rebuild it. And I think this is the way to go, but again, we would be, the people involved in this would be following the same guidelines, even though the state wouldn't need it. So there wouldn't be a group of people telling the superintendent or the principal what they should and shouldn't do. But what it does bring is the staff, the parents, and the community together to talk about what we need to do to bring this school forward, because it needs, it can't keep going backwards, it needs to go forward.
And it should lead to pride in the school district.
Exactly.
Okay, and again, that people are all speaking.
I would like to see it in every single school in this district. I would like to see this council in every school, because I think that's the way to grow.
All right, let's close with Fiona so we can move on to our next thing.
And I think the other thing to consider too is the council is comprised based on the numbers of half staff members, half members. So it's an equal playing ground as far as votes, and everything's done by majority votes of the members that are at the meetings. But one of our rules, because we have, part of it is you have to set up rules and boundaries, and it's very important. But one of them was that the assistant superintendent of schools is in charge of curriculum, not our council. And, you know, the principal kind of hears the first meeting, because they're the ones with the training as far as what our roles are and what our rules are. My concern is, I don't want to see us talk about this, have everybody go review the stuff, if anybody goes and reviews the stuff, and then still not have anything going on at the high school in 6 more months. We need all the feet on the ground that we can get, and if we can engage community members in the high school and get parents who have been disengaged for years at the high school to actually care what happens here again, we can only benefit. So if you approve this and put to the high school that the condition is the principal ultimately dictates a programmatic change.
This is just informational sharing. We're not voting on this. This is just them giving us a presentation about an upcoming philosophy. This has to be brought back as a discussion item to be voted on. There's no voting on this tonight.
Well, that wasn't my understanding, because when we talked about school improvement, I mean, theoretically, they create, you know, groups, organizations all the time. Does the board even need to approve something like this? Is my question. It's not mandated, but they voluntarily.
The school improvement committee was very, very, very clearly stated by me, and I think the rest of the committee, that this absolutely was a full board
To
decision.
come to the full board, but is it a vote, is my question.
Well, hell yeah.
Was it informational or a vote?
I would think if we wanted to establish a governance councils voluntarily in Torrington at our schools, that would definitely be a board directive to say, yes, at our schools, we want to develop governance councils. I mean, if it's being brought here, we're being asked, but this, I think from what I understood, this was to get our feet wet and understanding it, to follow with a discussion item, could be at the next meeting, could be 2 months from now, whatever we decide as a group that we want to have it come back as, and then after everybody's had a chance to digest it, is to either vote yay, we want to go forward with governing councils, or nay, we do not. That was my understanding.
If I could, what I would suggest. It's the word governance that concerns me, and I am for these. I'm very, very much for this, but I very, very much also want the guidelines and conditions for implementing this to be clearly understood by all stakeholders from the get-go, okay? Very often what you find out is everybody's agreement, rah, 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 then you get into it, then you get conflict, and then within the conflict, you're trying to define roles and responsibilities, and that's absolutely the wrong way to go about it. So what I recommend, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear, since we're talking about governance, I would like to hear our high school, if we're at the high school, our high school principal come forward with her recommendation for how this, I'd like to hear her conditions for implementing this at her school.
We can do
for the
that.
board for approval at the next meeting.
Right, okay. And what I was gonna ask, you said there's like 90-something pages? Is it a website?
Yeah.
Can administration email us the link to that website so that everybody here can view it? So that before Joanne comes forward with a proposal, if we have,
Do other board members agree with that? I mean, it's the school, for high school, right from the get-go, the high school principal should be presenting this to the full board for her school, whether or not she recommends it and on what terms she's comfortable with recommending it. We cannot begin the business of undermining our
absolutely. And answering your question, Fiona, and going forward, I mean, if any school principal felt that they needed a governance council, they would come and make a plea that they would like to start a governance council at their school to get, because again, we hire a superintendent who hires the principals, and it's the principal's job to engage everybody in that building. It's their job to educate and get the building live and vibrant and moving. And if the principal is not accomplishing that, that's one of the things that that the administration uses to measure the success of a principal. And if the principal has the entire school, rioting in the streets, obviously it's not working out. But if the principal builds a community and goes strongly, then I would think the principal's succeeding in that school. Grades are up, morale is up. I would think that's how you would positively assess a principal. So I would think that, as Paul was saying, is that the principals wanted to come forward and ask for it. We have the basis for it now. We get the website so we can review all the, so we understand you have the luxury of being involved in it, and we can kind of digest the dynamics of it. And when they came forward, we'd be able to say, yeah.
I mean, board's next meeting is January 30th at 4:30. They're open to the public. I kind of agree with that, but everything I look at in education is student focused. And I think with most of you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at what's in the best interest of the students in the building, and not necessarily, it's a fine line.
I do too, quite frankly. I don't know if your comment was to imply that
No, I'm saying
by insisting on lines of control
I don't
that this was against student interest.
Come here and say, I want to start this, it's a lot of extra work there to get people on board. But the bottom line is if it benefits students, we have to get cut through the minutia and start doing something.
But this is not minutia. This will only succeed. This will only succeed in an ongoing, sustainable way if the lines of control for this are clearly spelled out from the beginning, okay? And the rules and responsibilities of the parties are clearly understood. Then it will be productive. Otherwise, it's going to quickly dissolve into some kind of turf war, and this Board of Education is going to be just inundated with nonsense and petty, and it's just not going to be good.
I could definitely go down the road. I mean, Forbes, we didn't have an option. We have an option at the other schools, and if the schools, Joanne Creedon would like it at the high school, and I would think Joanne would come to us and say, hey, I want this at the high school. If Joanne says, I don't think it's going to work, and we have some times similar to the attendance thing, there's only been 3 meetings. And we don't have anything to see if that's really a functioning Board of Governance or not. Is it going to benefit? What's the benefit going to be? Is the principal receptive? Is there, you don't have a timeline to work off and say, all right, we've made the following improvements in this Board of Governance, and we want one at every school. I just think, and I know it's terrible to say we're just going to put it off for a little while, but without any kind of measurable data or any kind of input, or can you just turn around and say we want it at every school? And force it. I guess I'm saying, not force it down to the schools.
Mr. Chairman, is that what you're recommending? Will you initially put it all throughout the district?
No,
immediately?
we're talking specifically about the high school because the
Yeah,
high
next
school is
meeting.
undergoing a lot of changes.
Next meeting. And we set the precedent that the principal is directly involved in presenting this to the board. That's it.
And I
That's it.
think if you can keep in mind that the whole purpose of this is really, you know, maybe we should, I mean, they call them governance councils, but it's really, how do we get school, family, and community partnerships going for the best, you know, opportunity for the children attending that school. So it's really, you know, again, here's a goal set, we're all working on that goal. What are the strategies to get that, to reach that goal?
I get it.
And
All right, let's move on to our, thank you very much, ladies, for your input. Move on to our technology department structure.
Then you have a diagram in your packet. We've, this is developed in the result of the change in definition of our Director of Information Technology for both the city and Torrington Public Schools. Jerry Crowlett, Jerry is now, works for both the city of Torrington and for us. He works in direct relationship with the assistant superintendent of schools because one takes the curriculum component, that's the assistant superintendent, and he's responsible for providing the infrastructure, the network, you know, really overseeing, managing, and organizing everything dealing with technology. But it has to be a partnership there because we know where we want to go and how efficient and knowledgeable and the ability to apply technology skills we want our students to be. And that is developed from our curriculum, but at the same time, do we have what we need to make that happen in the classroom? And working with Mr. Crowley is on the Torrington Public School side. We have a technology operations manager, and this person will really support faculty with professional development and training and support, and anything else that she's assigned to do by the IT director. And then because she was just hired, and Mr. Jocelyn, okay, we don't need a name, but she has been hired and she's begun work.
Right.
And we have two support technicians. One who does with the help desk, ticketing and troubleshooting, and the other one really managing of the network systems and software packages. And then Jerry's also, Mr. Crowley's also responsible for the city technology operations and works with the manager, and then the city systems administrator. So it's a very simple trade. The greatest piece is the coordination between the assistant superintendent and the director of information technology, and then what is need to be done on, I'm going to say on the technical side in order to make the curriculum and the instruction happen.
Question, who actually pays Mr. Crowley out of what budget comes out of it? Split hand?
Yeah, 50-50.
Who ultimately is Mr. Crowley's boss?
Both the mayor and the superintendent.
It's a concept that has pros and cons to have a system set up that way. The other question I have is, as far as interacting with, obviously, the administration, and he is an administrator, I've had a concern that I would like to see this position have more direct input to the board, be it coming to school improvement on different ideas, or just just like we have at budget time, we have a principal of each building come before the board and make their presentation. I'd like to think that this person's position would have more day-to-day, month-to-month contact with what that person is setting up for objectives for working with curriculum, working with how the infrastructure works, and telling us as we go forward how to implement academic and school policies with the curriculum. But I'd like to think that we would have more of a direct input from that Mr. Crowley and his position to the board, so that we would have more of a dialogue as opposed to hearing it through some administration, through you or another.
Well, we've created a technology committee that was discussed at the last board.
Right.
As a board rep, we have Daniel on, and they're right now doing exactly what you're talking about, evaluating what the current structure is, what the upgrade needs are. Sue is inputting the educational piece. Daniel's assisting them with the technical hardware and wiring piece, so that we can have more of a understanding from a board where Dan would be able to come back to us, or Sue would be able to come back to us with what the actual, where we stand.
And I understand that. I think that's great. All I'm trying to say is, from a board member's perspective, I'd like to have more contact with Mr. Crowley coming to the board as a full board. And I understand that that's part of being subcommittee, but still I'd like to see more visual and audio from him directly to the board on these issues, so they become part of the official record.
I agree with Andrew completely on this, actually. I agree with him completely on this. I think this is such a huge concern of the board. This whole technology piece, particularly where the state is going to force us to go, and where we need to go, where we know already we need to go. This is so critical. There are so many huge landmines involved in this upgrade. That this becomes suddenly, I think this assumes a very key role of what the Board of Education in Torrington, and any town like Torrington, needs to consider at its regular meetings. I don't know if that means every month it makes better. I think that's probably too much. Maybe every other month we have an agenda item from Jerry Crowley to come here and answer direct questions, and on the opposite months we can have the committee give us just an updated report where we're going and what we can expect to hear from Mr. Crowley. So next month, Mr. Crowley, the month after that would be the committee, what we can blah, 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 revisit. This has to be an ongoing, rolling board agenda. It's a huge ticket item, and it's got so many ways to fail.
I just want to mention that the district technology plan, which will be due to Education Connection for review into the Connecticut State Department of Education in order to maintain our eligibility for E-rate funds, is going to be brought, the draft will be brought to the board for review in February, for review and comment, and then hopefully for approval in March. It's due to Education Connection March 31st, and it's due to the state with revisions if necessary by June 30th. So if we keep to that timeline, the District Technology Committee should have a presentation for the board for the February meeting for first read of the draft of the technology plan, and hopefully a second read and approval of the technology plan in March.
Are you proposing to bring Mr. Crowley there for that meeting in February?
Should attend.
Helen, yes, you should be here.
The other thing you should be aware of is that
He owns this. As far as I'm concerned, he owns this. And you better be prepared for whatever questions come up.
in developing the technology budget this year, Mr. Crowley and Mrs. Monaco sat down together with each administrator and, what are your goals for technology in your building, looking at it holistically for your faculty, for your staff, what initiative you'd like to take on, and that from there they developed the budget because, purchase holistically, you know, how many computers for each building, what was gonna need, I think you might spend 2 days. As
One
you
full
met,
day.
one full day meeting with principals. So,
He'll give us that whole summary when he gives us the report, right?
And when is that report now?
February.
At the meeting or prior to the meeting?
well, the one done with Sue was for the budget. The technology plan Sue's talking about is for the state.
So you're gonna have it for the board in February.
I'll have it drafted in February. It'll need to go for a first read and then for approval prior to submission to Education Connection for review.
I'm not even sure what, I don't even exactly understand the education connection, and without wanting to belabor tonight's agenda, what I would like to recommend is direct, for the chair to direct the administration to provide an executive summary of what we're talking about tonight. Who the players are, why they are where they are in this, okay? And just basically give us a treetop look at this technology piece. And I strongly recommend that this board put this on a front burner for every single meeting. This is a big thing for us. We've got to get it right.
I go back to my original thought, which is, I guess my concern is what, as we go forward into the future, in the next few years, what's really going to be driving curriculum? Will it be technology, or will it be coming from our curriculum chairperson? And I know you're not into that, it's a curriculum person, but I'm kind of seeing as technology guides how curriculum can be delivered to the students. I think you're going to see that it's going to be a push and shove between the two going into the future. Who's really going to be controlling the curriculum in school, in public education, and not just public education, but education in general. That's why I'm kind of wondering where we want Mr. Crowley to be placed in our flow chart of superintendent, assistant superintendent.
And that's absolutely my concern as well, in a certain sense, is that you start making technology decisions, it may start to limit curriculum decisions that you make. I mean, it's got to work completely hand in hand. And the fact that the city's in this mix, the street department has a different use for this technology upgrade than we do. Other departments have, Park and Rec, we're the education department, and this technology has got to service our 5,000 kids, or it's not. It's just something we can't accept, and we've got to be, step by step, march forward in total cognizance of what we're doing, and making sure that what we're spending money on is in the very best interest of student achievement, and not other larger city considerations.
And that's the issue of having two masters, which I know we want to share resources, but something of this nature here, which is so important, I just want to make sure that we have control over this.
They are of equal importance, which is why Jerry and Sue on that chart work hand in hand and side by side. You have the curriculum piece, you have the technology piece, they have to be together.
Yeah, I'm talking about the two masters in the sense that he's working with the mayor of the city of Torrington on the municipal side, and he's going to be hearing from.
They don't have a lot of computers.
But the type of computers, it's the way they're wired, it's the bandwidth, it's all kinds of things. It's all kinds of things that that have to serve our curricular needs first. And again, if we make compromises, we find out 2 or 3 years down the road we can't do the kinds of things we want to do because we made these decisions, and it's going to be way too costly to upgrade, revise, another.
But just so you know, the mayor's not telling the technology director what kind of technology to install at the schools.
I don't believe he is. I'm saying
it's all the sharing of the technology directors. If they have a technology question, he answers the question. If we have a technology question, he answers our question. It's just a sharing of a person's time. It's not, they're really, most cities did their fiber build as one unit. Torrington elected not to do that. The Board of Ed went and did their fiber thing, and the city is trying to do theirs. They unfortunately are two separate systems. A lot of cities did it as one. We're not in that situation.
All right, I thought going forward that there was a push to integrate us at this point with the upgrades of the educational system.
No,
No?
it's a sharing of a person.
Oh, okay.
All it is a sharing of a
All right,
person's
all
knowledge.
right, all right,
It's
all
not,
right.
it's not
All right,
compromising our technology or us adapting their technology. It's
Mm-hmm.
really just sharing the personnel in one department,
All
instead
right.
of the city having a full IT department and us having a full IT department. Torrington has one IT department servicing.
Yeah, but
Holistic.
it's going to put the two technologies of the municipality and the Board of Ed on the same technological way, road. I mean, I know that. I mean, that's what is ultimately trying to be accomplished. That it, I mean, I know, I just know that's,
Yeah.
and it has to work that way, and it should work that way. I'm not talking that we don't want to be.
But our technology budget is completely separate from their technology budget. So what we as a Board of Ed decide to spend on technology is our responsibility to spend on technology. There isn't going to be a separate budget that is shared. Anyone else have any comments? No? Next on your list.
iPad. Speaking of technology, included in your packet is an update on the iPad pilot that was included in the 2011-2012 budget. There's a little bit of background about the first infusion of iPads to the district and how they were distributed. There was a second set of iPads that were purchased as part of our 2011-12 technology pilot. These second set of units were distributed to school sites and made available to teachers to check out the library media center. Broken this memo to Cheryl down into 3 parts: the iPads for administrative use, for each of these areas, for administrative use, for board use, and for classroom or instructional use. For each one of these, I've identified some of the benefits that we've been able to realize through the purchase of the iPads and some challenges that we've had. For example, for administrative use, all the administrators were surveyed and provided the following data. The iPads are being used extensively for improved communication, productivity, including the ability to access PowerSchool from outside of the district, accessing information from the internet and the district website. Many of the administrators are using their iPads to collect data during their classroom observations. They're using the calculator and calendar functions. They're all using them for note-taking at meetings. Many of them are also using the camera function in the iPads to help document discipline investigations, and they have been collecting a number of different apps to improve the versatility and functionality of the units. The PDF Expert, actually, Paul, that was the item that you were asking about earlier. WritePad, eBooks, PDF Expert, Docs2Go, Kindle, Common Core Standards, and others. So they've been taking advantage of these applications to customize the iPads more to fit their positions. One of the greatest challenges for the administrators in their use of the iPads has been adapting a protocol to work out a process to acquire apps. So whether they're purchased by the district or purchased for personal use, to try to get a process in place for that. Technology department's been working on that. Currently, this is new territory for Apple, since the iPads were originally developed for one-to-one use, and they weren't originally developed for a large-scale deployment to organizations or corporations in the way that they're being used. So that's something that everyone's learning as they're going along. The iPads for Board of Ed use, they were provided for board members to assist in transition to a paperless process. The challenges, reviews have been somewhat mixed about the utility of devices, because there have been issues that had to be resolved regarding the public and private network settings and the upgrade of the district server in order to be able to handle the Apple applications. Many of the board members have put them to good use. If anyone is interested in returning their unit to the district, we have a request specifically for 2 iPads at one of our school programs, and they would be happy to immediately deploy those with 2 of the students in one of our special education programs. But I think we've been able to identify some of the bugs and to make the iPads a more functional tool. As far as the classroom and instructional use, some of the ways in which they have been used, the elementary literacy groups have been using them extensively for beginning sounds, phonics, patterning. They've been used in science classes for journaling, comparing animals, doing web quests. Many of the schools have used them in centers across all of the academic disciplines. Phonics, letter formation, sound recording, language arts games for small group or individual instruction to differentiate instruction, math games, giving students access to technology in classrooms where there are very few other workstations, guided reading, in which an app can be used to transform the iPad into a whiteboard so the teacher can actually write on the iPad with her finger and project to the whole class. The occupational therapists have been using them for writing skills, dictionary apps, math flashcards, YouTube for social studies instructions, learning about cells. The biggest challenge has been that demand has certainly exceeded the supply, and there's a waiting list at each school. Some of the schools are still experiencing some issues with the wireless access points located through the building, but this access is being expanded. The process of acquiring and loading apps delayed the initial distribution, but there is a process that has been developed and shared, so these iPads are in constant use throughout the district. So this is the way in which they are being used at this point to enhance instruction. All technology, from my point of view, needs to be regarded as a tool. There are things that you can do just as effectively without technology, and there are some instances where technology allows you to do things that you would not otherwise be able to do. And so this is just a quick update on some of the ways in which these units are being used. I think they've been a good investment so far.
Mr. Chair, I made this request for this up review. I have a couple quick questions. Very quick. How many total units were purchased?
The second set of the Generation 2 iPads that were purchased through the pilot, I believe, was about $16,000, and that was a classroom set of 25 units and a charging cart that were all purchased as a single unit.
So how many total for the district?
Total, probably about 60.
60?
Yeah.
Okay. How many are in the hands of kids, students?
At least 40. Because
Really?
then the 10 of them with the administrators, 10 of them with the board.
Fine. Thank you. That's all I want to know. That's fine. I think as an educational tool, they're great. I just want to be sure that that's the primary focus of those numbers. Pretty much validate that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on that proposal? Okay. Moving forward to materials to the BOE.
I will just,
Take one and pass one.
Yep, we've added now the committee and liaison assignments. We have contact list with Board of Education. We've added the City of Torrington phone directory. So just put in the back of your guidebook for close, your binders you received last time. And Ms. Calutro did an excellent job in getting this done. Quick count.
Okay. Under agenda item number 6, discussion and action items. We're going to go directly to number 3, approval of December 2011 financial statements.
Yes.
Joey?
Absolutely. Let me just get there. Sorry.
Sure.
Multitasking.
The first page is the summary sheet of where we project to be as of June 30th. Where the district's in very good shape right now. We're projecting to have a surplus right now. As I've said last meeting and continue to say at the budget committees, the special ed department's really doing a great job this year with staying within budget, and that's what's really driving our surplus right now. Because the majority of all other accounts, besides maybe a maintenance account, if something breaks down, we can stay on budget. So we're doing very good this year.
What you want to add anything to it? Comparative year over year, we're in a much better situation. We talked about it at a budget committee. Essentially, I believe at this point last year we were projecting a deficit of about $300,000 to $400,000.
Correct.
And again, it's solely not solely influenced, but mainly influenced by the special education out-of-district placements that we haven't had to bear yet this year, but you never know what the future holds. So at this point, we're fairly comfortable with our where we're going to end, but there's a lot of variables between now and June.
Yes, absolutely. Please
So we
keep that
just-
in mind, because it will start to drill down
Yes.
in the coming months.
Yes, and when we talked about legal, you know, we're projecting to go over there. The main, well, we're negotiating 3 contracts this year. You know, we've seen an increase and in expulsion hearings. As a result of that, we've also retained counsel to represent the administration in those proceedings as well. We just felt that that was smart to do based on some of the moving parts that we've seen as of late. So these things are getting very complex. We want to make sure we handle them properly. The other thing that we had in there too is we had a figure in there for arbitration. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we're at this point not expecting to have to expend those funds. So we make I'll make a motion to approve it.
Need a second? Fiona, any discussion? All those in favor of accepting? Aye. Okay. Budget transfers.
It's, right, we had the opportunity to pilot a new version of the Last Links, which is the assessment that we are mandated to administer to all children who are in our ELL program, English Language Learners Program. And by volunteering to try this new version out, we received enough money back to pay for the scoring. And so what I've asked is that rather than say, okay, here you go, can we put it in instructional materials for 2 of our schools? We need some more instructional materials for our second language learners. So we paid for the Lost Lane scoring by doing the pilot, and now we'd like to get some instructional materials with that money that was allocated for the scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to accept it or approve it. We did discuss it at the budget committee. There was a little bit more detail that was shared at the budget committee about what you were purchasing, and it was going to go right back into the program. I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that.
It's working with literacy for forms, and then literacy materials. And then at the high school, because we had several newcomers this year to the high school, we really need to get these students involved in the content, even while they're learning the second language. And so to buy some materials where we can really focus on the science and the history and math. And it's really looking at texts that are content-driven, but on an easier reading level for someone who's learning the second language.
And it was, I think it was also shared at budget committee that we had, I believe the number is 6, I could be wrong, but we had 6 students transfer into the high school, and
yes.
They don't speak English at all.
And that's why we need these, because they're spending 2 to 3 periods a day in learning English, but then we also have to, because they're expected to take their CAP test, you know, within a year.
So basically, to learn a language, and take a test.
And also still learn all the content,
And then-
graduate.
Are we in the discussion phase of this?
No, we're not.
Sorry.
We're still making the
I
motion.
made the motion, I just,
Did we get a second on the motion?
I messed up my own motion.
Second from Fiona, discussion?
Well, just quickly, we'll move right past this, but at some point, I would like to hear the administration's, I know this goes to state law and mandate and everything else, but I would like to hear, especially since the state of Connecticut has finally found religion and realizes we have significant problems in public education. And if they are on that train, what do they, just, again, for future discussion at some point, I would love to hear an honest assessment. If it makes more sense in this whole English language learning system that we have in place, If a kid comes into the school district, can't speak English, it just seems to me common sense would dictate the first thing you do is put your resources. Teach, if you have to teach him English, you teach him English. Teach him English. That's what you do for the bulk of that day that that kid is in class. And then when that kid can then learn enough English to learn math and multiplication, but then you integrate them in. And if they lose a year, they'll lose a year. That's the price of coming to.
But then we get,
What? Well, let's
if
have
they don't
that
graduate in
discussion.
4
I would love to
years.
hear. Well,
we get hit with that,
hit with what?
that they're not graduating
Sixth grade
on
next
time.
year?
Yeah.
Well, no, I understand that, but I would like to see that discussion and what the cost-benefit analysis of doing something very different than what we're doing now, because this clearly is just ridiculous.
It'd be interesting
To try to
to
teach
follow
a
the
foreign
student.
language. If your kid suddenly moved to Czechoslovakia and was put into the same third grade there and had to learn math in Czechoslovakia, what do you think the results would be? You know, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, and then everybody scratches their head, why are these, well, something has got to be done differently, and I would like to hear a recommendation from administration, and maybe we can use that to then inform our legislators when they go to the revival meeting in Hartford, you know, in the coming months, with some really, you know, knowledgeable stuff to consider as far as revising these statutes.
Well, it's federal,
At the federal level,
that's what drives.
Well, we've got people, we elect people there too.
Yep. They already cut us out.
It's an obvious disconnect, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to reassure you.
That information-
In the meantime, we gotta get them the books.
Yeah, okay,
You know what I mean?
So I'm backing off, I just want to put on.
You're 100% right.
Okay. If that stuff doesn't come from boards of education, it's not going to come from the politicians calling boards of education members, you know, 6 weeks before an election and say, what's the problem with public education, and keep it short. That's not going to get these problems solved at the national or state level, and that's what's happening, we all know.
Yep.
So let's put our thinking caps on and provide them with some useful analysis of the problem. I'd love to hear that, okay, at some point.
Any other discussion?
Any other frustrations?
On a roll.
All those in favor? Aye. Are you in, Paul, or out?
For what? Approving, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to shut up and then
You're gonna be on TIC soon, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna switch network. Okay, insurance costs.
I'll be in a soapbox on the whole park.
As long as you're not living under it.
This,
All you.
So you go ahead.
this was a request from last board meeting to bring forth what our health benefit costs are. These are real dollars, what the Board of Ed actual claims are through the month of November. And you also will see city, because this is the report my staff does on a monthly basis.
Do you want to talk about the
I
funding?
mean, I have information from what was requested at Budget Committee. I just wasn't sure if that was, did you want that to go back to Budget Committee?
I think you should go back to budget.
Yeah.
All right, this is just for everyone to digest again. This is an ongoing question we've had of insurance costs, how much we spend versus how much benefit we derive from it percentage-wise. We appear to be consuming the percentage we're being charged of the percentage of the overall city budget. Do I have a motion to accept this document? So moved by David, second by Daniel. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Out-of-district field trips.
This was also information that was requested by the board at the previous meeting to talk a little bit about the field trip process. This item actually needs to be broken into two parts because in addition to the information that we're going to share with you tonight, there is also a request for an additional out-of-state field trip, so we'll consider those two separately. Just to go through the process very quickly, when a faculty member wishes to take a trip or a trip sponsor needs to complete an application form, which is located on the website, and there's also a copy in the packet for the specific trip we're going to talk about later. The form has to be approved at the school level first by both the nurse and the principal. It is sent to my office, the Office of Assistant Superintendent, for review. And the main things I look for are bulleted for you there. I look for instructional merit and curriculum relevance. Scrutinize the plans for coverage. There are basically three options. There's no coverage. In other words, the teacher accompanies the entire class on the trip, which is the most common model at the elementary level. I look for opportunities for internal coverage. This is more common at the secondary level, where a teacher may be accompanying several sections but not their entire teaching load. And then the other option is that a substitute is needed. So whenever possible, we encourage teachers who are going to be traveling with the majority of their class sections to look for internal coverage for those sections that remain behind. The approval for local trips is granted at central office. Those are the kind of trips that were alluded to earlier, the information sharing to the Torrington Historical Society, the fire department, and Talcott Mountain and other local trips. Those trips that are out of state or overnight are deferred to the Board of Education, and really primarily because of the additional exposure for risk and liability. There are several different sources for funding that I've laid out for you there. There are some trips that are budgeted, and the sheet in your packet that follows this one will detail which trips fit into that category. This is very common for trips in which participation in the trip is a class expectation. And next category are those that are subsidized. Those are trips that are grant funded, such as our 4th grade trip connected to the science curriculum on motion and forces that goes to the New England Air Museum. That's entirely funded by grants. There are schools in which the student activity account covers part of the trips in order to keep the trips low and affordable to the families in the school. Many of the trips are also funded through fundraising, either PTO or school fundraising. Some of the trips, the student or family pay the entire amount, and it's very common to see some combination of the above. Just to kind of summarize some of the issues that were raised by the board at the last meeting, board policy requests that all out-of-state and overnight trips be presented as a group, generally at the May Board of Education meeting. And at that time, the board gets a spreadsheet that summarizes all of the out-of-state and overnight trips through, for board policy. The complete field trip application does come to me for each of those and does include detail on the class coverage and chaperone plans, as well as the funding detail. The Board of Ed does not see the request for local trips, and some of these do fit in that category as budgeted trips. For example, many of the in-state music trips and the trips that are funded in the budget for the TAG program. I do see all trip requests, both local and out-of-state or overnight, and you can be assured that approval is not automatic. In fact, there are many trips that are denied at this step because I have concerns about the relevance, cost, coverage, timing. For example, there was a trip that came to me recently that was scheduled the week before CMTs were to start, and that was pretty much a no-brainer. I did not think it was appropriate for a large group of students to be out of the district at that time. The next sheet in there, I'll let Danielle speak to that. It talks about which trips are in the general fund.
Sure. This is from this year's budget, what by school, you can see the high school and the middle school are the two schools that we budget field trips for. The reason why we budget the field trips in the general fund is because they're mandatory through the curriculum.
They're like instructional materials almost.
Correct. The high school is the majority. The big one is about 17,000. And then how this whole thing came up originally is from the middle school one with the Cape Cod trip, which is about 4,000, which, excuse me, that will no longer be in the future. But the request was asked.
So just in terms of questions about transparency.
This is the first half, not the, you're just talking right now.
You're not talking about the specific field trip yet?
No, that will follow this discussion.
All right.
Can I get a motion to accept this information provided to us on field trips? Daniel, second. John? John. Any discussion on this? Yes.
I just, if it can't be put in it, especially looking at the music, $10,000 for field trips set aside in the general fund. As a budget person, I want to look at the total cost of running a program here when we're looking at budget issues. And I think $10,000 not in their budget that we're paying for is a big amount in these times. When we're looking at every $10. So
That
maybe
also
we
goes
could
back
parentheses
to,
it or
does,
something.
does that, I think that goes back to the issue that we uncovered at the budget meeting where when we're looking at the total cost of these field trips, there's a cost or a line item that has been, just omitted from the overall cost of the field trip, which are those dollars within the schools that are allocated for these trips.
See, that's right, but that's where the confusion, I think, lies. These field trips never come to you because the majority, they're Connecticut-based field trips. You only see out of district, so when you're seeing the out of district, you're out of state, excuse me, you're seeing the real cost. You're just, the in-state field trips aren't coming to you, so that's where, that's what we don't see.
Except for the Cape Cod one. The Cape Cod one was not on there because that's an educationally mandated one, right? Because when we saw the Cape Cod trip, it didn't show that dollar amount.
Right.
It showed that there was no cost to the district, but there's actually $3,000 in the
$3,000
budget
worth of cost in the budget.
that's in there.
Right.
So there's two reasons we don't see them, if they're academically mandated or if they're in-state.
Right.
Would it be better served if instead of making it in-state, out-of-state, if that's, instead of that being the litmus test, if it's just a dollar amount, and each field trip above this dollar amount, goes to the board? I mean, ultimately, that's kind of what.
It could be out-of-state and over a certain dollar.
Out of state and or over a certain dollar amount.
Something like that.
Well, I think the Board of Ed policy just addresses the overnight and out-of-state and out-of-the-country ones because of the risk and liability that's associated with it.